Okay, guys, we're back. We're going to talk about change. Life always changes. Things change. Nothing stays the same. You know how we want it to. We think we find that perfect uh, nexus, and we just want it to go on forever. Well, the reality is it doesn't. So the change that I'm going to talk about here is change on the lower Laguna Madre. Like I've told you guys, I mean, I keep beating a dead horse. I tell you, I've been fishing out there since the 80s. Um, and the lower Laguna Madre has changed. The land hasn't moved. The water's there, but the water level has changed. The actual sandbars that you have to deal with have changed because just over time, sand is going to shift. And due to all the storms that we've had over the past 30 years, it's going to shift in different spots. And as I was talking in that grass flats video that I just made, I was talking about how it's changed at the front of Green Island for me. Because that used to be the place when that sandbar ran all the way across the front. You just had this narrow, nice little slit in between the sandbar and the island. That was a beautiful place that you used to catch everything there on the lower Laguna Madre. But since that sandbar has eroded towards the north end of the island there, that separates it from the intercoastal and the bay of Green Island there, the fishing has changed. And fishermen that come and fish it today, they don't see the change. It's just, I see the change because I remember I was there and I used to fish it. So I'm going to try to make an attempt here to kind of show you what it used to look like. Like I said, I'm going to attempt because I looked a lot for research, historical photographs and stuff of the lower Laguna Madre, and I didn't really get much. I did a lot of AI searches with different search engines, and all that they kept bringing back was the ones for the upper Laguna Madre and Baffin Bay, not the lower Laguna Madre. So they call it the lower Laguna Madre, but it's not. It's the upper Laguna Madre. But anyway, I did find some old Google satellites. I don't think Google was around back then, so I'm assuming they either purchased this company or purchased the rights or whatever. But it's public information. It's not anything that's a secret. You can do a web search and you can find them publicly. But I think they came from the old Gemini satellite, so they're not very high quality. They're grainy, so it's not a very high quality picture, but it's a picture of the lower Laguna Madre, and you can see, you know, how it looked back then. And I think it goes all the way up for, I think it starts in 1984 that they were taking pictures, because I looked at the Landsat too. I went to the Landsat, I say stat, but Landsat website, and it didn't really have anything. Well, I had it on the upper Laguna Madre. It had that, but it didn't really have anything enough to put together to use for the lower Laguna Madre. If you don't really know, Landsat is the satellite that's the oldest satellite that's in orbit, that's been taking pictures for the longest time, and normally it takes pictures of the geological features and stuff like that, you know. So it holds the Guinness Book of World Records for being the longest satellite still in operation. But when I went to their website, I kind of struck out on my end. I mean, it had some good stuff, Baffin Bay, good stuff, the Corpus Christi Bay in that area, but it didn't. It only went as far as the land cut south for me, unless I missed it somewhere on their website. So the land cut is 20 miles north of Port Mansfield. So the land cut is where the lower Laguna Madre starts, and then it runs all the way down to the South Padre Island in the ship channel. But I'm going to try to make an attempt here with these old grainy photographs and try to show you. I was going to draw stuff on there, but my S Pen is down too, so I mean, when it rains it pours. I don't know what's going on with my phone. I can't get my S Pen to connect for some reason. and I've done everything, and everything looks good. I just think the S Pen's no longer any good anymore. So I guess it's telling me it's time I need to, I guess, get another phone eventually. But like I told you guys, I do everything on my phone. I don't own a computer. Well, I say I don't. I got an old Mac computer, 2007 model, Mac OS, which you can't really upgrade anything in that thing because it was built before 2012, because the new operating systems that Macs use is, I guess it's different. There's no upgrade for that old system. So that's just one of these things, one of these days I probably need to get. But I'm a mobile kind of person, and I like small, compact things, and just the technology that's been put behind cell phone nowadays. It does pretty much almost everything that a computer can do. I mean, pretty darn close. I don't know if a cell phone will ever supplant a computer, but it comes pretty close. And for my needs, it serves what I need. And it does this. It does makes these videos for me and does fine. So anyway, don't hold it against me. These aren't the greatest photos in the world. They're real grainy because, like I say, it's an old satellite. But I think it's off the Gemini satellite. I'm pretty sure that's what it was that I read somewhere there. And we'll see. And we'll take a look at this. And so you can see, back when I used to fish it, and this is 84, so this was right in the prime when I used to fish it. The sandbars were massive out there at Arroyo City, between Green Island, Bird Island, and also 3 Islands. Massive sandbars, humongous. And at low tides, you couldn't get back to a lot of the areas that I fish now that you see in all these videos. It was only a high tide kind of a thing, and then it was super shallow, and you had to have a super shallow running board. That's how shallow sport became king down here, because they had that old fantail model that could get up in 6 inches of water. I mean, so that's what really made them big. Dargo had the old scooter. The old little 13.5, 13.6 scooter that could go out there and get in that super skinny water too. And then of course Shoalwater made the Sportsman series. That's when it came out around 84 also, and put them on the map too, to run shallow water down here. And anyway, so we're going to take a look at this. I'm going to try to do my best with limited material. And I'm just gonna have to kind of talk you through it because I can't circle the spots on the picture, and the picture's not that great, but I'm gonna give it my best effort so you can kind of see that it's completely changed, especially at Green Island. The way the water is, it's completely changed. That island and sandbar used to be humongous in front of Green Island, and it used to filter out any of the dirty water, and it made it pretty much, had high clarity in the water. Like I tell you, like 70-75%. It doesn't have that anymore. Like you see where I'm at right there, that's clear water that I'm in. As you can see where we're going right there, you can see it. We're in the grass flats, and it's crystal clear water there. And it used to be pretty close like that at Green Island, in the front of Green Island. It's still like that in the back of Green Island. It's just as clear, but in the front, it used to be pretty darn close. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Okay, so look, here we have a satellite image from 1984. This is the Lower Laguna Madre, right where the mouth of the arroyo is. It has Rattlesnake Bay. It shows Green Island, Bird Island, and it shows 3 islands down there at the very bottom of the screen. And you can see where you come out at the Y, Bird Island's right there. But what you got to look at, you see all that brown that's in that picture? That's a sandbar. Massive sandbars that ran all the way from 3 islands in the south going north, way past Green Island into the whole saucer area. Big, massive sandbars. And you see that little dark, you see Green Island is a dark green speck right here, and then there's a nice little dark green stream of water right off to that. That's the bay that I was just in that previous video. So you can see it's a big difference. And look how much bigger Green Island is. You had a big jutting, massive sandbar off of the end of it too. So in low tide times, you had to navigate through all this, and a lot of that stuff was so shallow you couldn't even get there through it because it was high and dry when it was low tides. So big difference in 1984 compared to what you see out there in 2025 now. Yeah, you know, the islands are still in the same spot. They've, of course, have eroded. They're not as big as they used to be. But see, also, if you look, it's hard to see the intercoastal waterway. The intercoastal waterway, where you see that green streak that's right in front of Green Island, there's a big, massive sandbar there that's brown, and you see how it runs past the green streak and it goes up to almost where that island chain is. Well, in between that and this dune-looking spoil dumps, that's the intercoastal waterway. You just can't really see it that good in this picture. Like I said, this is an old photo. It's an old grainy photo. I'm gonna blow it up a little bit, but it's gonna be pretty grainy when we do. This is probably the best focus that you can see. But anything that's brown, that's in there, that's at certain times there was no water. So at low tides, those areas were high and dry. That's why it's so brown. And you don't really see that out there nowadays. You see it here and there, but not like this. I mean, it used to be big sections of land that were just high and dry at low tide. You could fish right up against it and drift along those edges, you know, in the grass flats, but you couldn't go any further back that way. And then you see how when you go towards the island, it gets blue again. And then it was deeper over there. So there was a big, massive sandbar that ran right down the center of the grass flats out there in front of Arroyo City. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. It's kind of hard to explain if you weren't there to see it. And we used to fish it at high tide. So that's why I always told you that I'm a high tide kind of a guy, because the reason why at high tide, you could get back in some of those areas. Not all of the areas, even at high tide, but most of those areas, you could get back in there and you could fish and you could catch redfish. And that's why I always went at high tide, because I knew I could go further into the flats than what I can at a low tide. But now that we have more water in the bay, and we've had more water in the bay for many, many years, there'll be a video that I'm going to be doing that'll be coming up eventually. I don't know when, because I'm just doing them as they come up. That I'll be commentating on. It's where I fished out of Port Isabel, and I went to Long Bar. Long Bar was is a big, massive sandbar out there just north of Port Isabel and Padre Island along the intercoastal there. Well, when I'm fishing it, you can't even see Long Bar because it's underwater. I'm drifting right over the top of it because there's so much water in the bay. So that's all I'm trying to say, is that there's a lot of water in the bay now versus as there was back then. There wasn't as much water. But as you look in the picture, you can see it was a whole different ball game when you were grass flat fishing back then and drift fishing than it is today, because you could pretty much almost go almost everywhere if you got a shallow running boat now. Back then, that wasn't the case, you know. So we're gonna get a closer up picture, and we're gonna take a look at it and see. But big change. That's 1984, guys. 1984. So that is 30 years ago, right? Because we're in 2025. So just say 2024. 14, 4. No, 40 years ago. Shoot, how long has it been? Man, I'm older than what I think I can. All it is I know it's a long time ago. I hate to reminisce and then I start counting and saying, like, man, I'm old. It's nothing to remind you like that. But anyway, yes. So 30, 40 years ago, it was a different game. And as you can see here, you still have some, like if you're heading down to 3 Islands, like you can see right now, as I'm heading to 3 Islands there, I'm in the channel, I'm heading down. Off to the left, to the port side, that's where all that big brown streak used to be. And at low tides, that was all high and dry. Or if anything, it only had 2 inches, 3 inches of water on it. But you could still see the sand. And you would drift along those edges. And that's how you'd catch the trout, catch the reds, and all that stuff. You know, because they'd be working that edge, because they'd be pushing bait up against that edge and be feeding on it. And you don't really see that out there now because, like I said, over time the topography of the bay floor has changed. There's still sandbars, but not as big, not as massive, and not as predominant as there was back in 1984. So let's take a look at the next one. Okay, here it is blown up. So let's look at this. This is Green Island. And look how big the sandbar is on the south side of Green Island there. Look how far it juts out there. And then you got a little smaller one on the north side. The one on the south side is still there. It's just not as big as it is. If you look in my drone footage in this previous video that I just posted, fishing in front of Green Island, you can still see it. It's underwater. It's got some water on it, but it's still there. It's eroded down, but it's still there. But what's changed is if you go to back towards the intercoastal waterway there, look at the green streak of water. That's where the deep water was, which is usually about 3 to 4 feet deep. And it's a half moon shape right there, and that's a sandbar, which is no longer there anymore. It used to run, you see how it used to run all the way past Green Island and go up to where that old gut is, that goes all the way back to those little spoil dumps that head towards the island, which I was going out there and showing you in this last video too. But you can see how big it is. It's not like that. It's small now. It only runs about halfway of the island now, and the whole northern half of that is gone. You can just go halfway up, and then you can cut right across and go into the bay in Green Island. So that's gone. And what you have there is just a lot of water that comes in. So like I said, the topography has changed with that. And when you're fishing, you know, because, you know, fish like structure, and all fish like structure. So, well, let's put it this way. All fish in the lower Laguna Madre like some sort of structure. So some of it, it's, you know, it's pilings, bridges, whatever. Others, it's grass, potholes, outcroppings of sandbars that come up. So they hunt and they hang in areas like that because, you know, they're opportunists. They're looking to, you know, to feed, and they're looking to ambush bait fish as they come by. And these shallow waters, I mean, it may be different out in the Gulf of Mexico how they feed and stuff, but in the shallow water they use the grass which is the structure, to camouflage them so that they can ambush the fish. And like the red being in the flat for a long time, when it gets that deep bronze color, it looks almost the same color as the grass. And it's hard for a bait fish to see that. It's like a camouflage. And it helps them out as they're waiting there in ambush to hunt until they get big enough. And then, of course, they move back into the channel, and then they go offshore to, you know, into the Gulf. But, you know, what we're covering here is just to show you, like, that was the same picture, 1984. As you can see, it's just blown up. But you could see how much brown was around there. So when you had a low tide, and you had low tides back then, not low tide, because like a low tide that you see now in 2025 was a high tide in 1984. So where the water level drops to low tide now, that was a high tide in 2024 and 1984. So it's a big difference. Like I said, we have more water in the bay. There's been more water in the bay for many years now. And then plus all the storms and hurricanes that have passed by or come through have shifted these sands and laid them out more flatter in some areas, and then in some areas completely eroded them all away. And in that case, Bird Island is a perfect example of that. So that's a 1984. So let's look at another picture. We're going to take another look, okay? Let's take a look at this. Okay, let's look at this one. This one's 10 years later, 1994. So, big difference, huh? Look at the Lower Laguna Madre 10 years later from the one we just looked at. A lot more water, a lot greener. And so it makes you wonder, okay, so what's happened? Why has it changed like this? Well, I'm sure it's a number of things, but probably one of the biggest factors are all the hurricanes and storms over the past 10 years, from 84 to 94, that has changed this. And then we had hot, I think we're kind of in a drought kind of back in the early 80s, right there somewhere, but then it got really rainy and got wet for many years. So you get a lot of fresh water coming into the bay and pumping into the bay, like you have now with all the water that's coming out and the storms that we've had lately. How it, at one time here, just back in May, Arroyo City was just, I mean, slammed with water. The water level rose down the Arroyo like 30, 40 feet and washed everything away if it wasn't tied down. If you guys saw that big rainstorm that we had, where it only rained for like 4 days and it flooded the mid-valley and stuff. So there's a lot of reasons for it. You know, the climate is always changing. It has been ever since the beginning of time. The climate has always changed. But if you look here in this picture, as you can see at Green Island, it's starting to erode just a little bit. But if you look to the left of Green Island there, along the intercoastal where that sandbar is, it has a big indentation into it, to where the water has already been eroding away into that and chopping down that big sandbar to where what you see today when you go out there in 2025, it's a much smaller sandbar that's there in Island than what was originally there back in the 80s. But big difference, guys. Big difference. Bird Island's still pretty good size. It's a little smaller now. But as you can see, it was a lot higher out of the water than it is now. Because look how it really stands out there at the mouth of the Arroyo. A lot higher. And as you can see down at Three Islands too, they're more prevalent, and you don't see as much brown anymore, because all those sandbars had either been leveled out or the water level has risen so much that they stay underwater most of the time, and grass has grown. So when I talk about it, it's not the same type of fishing. It was different back then. In the 80s, and the people that were around that are still out there drift fishing or fishing on the Lower Laguna Madre, they know what I'm talking about. It's not like it is now, to where you can go pretty much anywhere you want to go. It wasn't that way back in the 80s. You know, you had limited places to go, and most of the time when you went, you went at high tide, because it gave you more access to places that you normally couldn't get into. But now you can pretty much do whatever you want now, because we just have so much water, you know. But pretty interesting, huh? Pretty neat. That's pretty cool contrast there. The grass flats have grown bigger, and you have more areas and more opportunity to chase the reds down in the flats than you had, you know, 30, 40 years ago. Let's see what else here we can see. Look at Rattlesnake Bay. Water's pretty deep in Rattlesnake Bay too. So, you know, just like it is here in this video right here. Water. There was a lot of water when I was heading down to Three Islands that day. A lot of water. And that's Three Islands coming up here. on the left and on the right. We just passed Duncan's house, and we're going to be heading, to Three Islands. And you can cut across here, and you got to watch. If you cut across before the island, there are still some sandbars there that you got to watch out for and navigate through. Or you can shoot down past Three Islands and come up from the backside and drift the whole backside of Three Islands. That's what I usually like doing too. I like doing that a lot. But change. It's always changing. The lower Laguna Madre, the water level is always changing. The sand is always shifting, and we have change there. So that's just something you just have to keep in mind. And so with the change, what is it going to do? The fish habits are going to change too, and you have to adapt with them as they adapt with the change. That's all that I'm saying. It's like I'm telling you, like when I fish the front of Green Island, it doesn't produce like I like it to produce, like it used to. It doesn't produce the same. And I think a big reason why it's like that is because that sandbar eroded away, because it used to create like a little cove in there, and and it would filter it out, and fish would hang there, all the time. I'm sure you still catch them there every day now and then, but I'm telling you, all the time you would go and they would always be there. So we're going to look at one more. Let's take a look at another one. We'll do another 10 years and we'll take a look at it. So let's get a look at this. Let's take a look. Okay. Look at this one. 10 years later, 2004. So look at the sandbar and the island across from Green Island. Look how it's almost gone. So 10 years from 1994 to 2004, it was pretty much almost eroded away. Look how it's already cut it in half. And so you can start to see that there's changing in the mid-2000s, that early mid-2000s. They're starting to change at Green Island. Because look how it is. It's cut into 3 pieces there in this satellite image. And so 20 years ago, it was one solid landmass. Now it's cut into 3 sections. So I think with the Green Island situation, I think the reason why the fishing has changed, some people say it's because it's been overfished. I don't think it's been overfished, because Bird Island and Rattlesnake Bay still produce to this day in 2025. But I think what changed the ecology there, and the reason why the fish aren't no longer hanging there, you may catch them passing through there if you're there at the right time, and may capitalize and catch on them. But it's not like it is, I'm telling you, at Bird Island and Rattlesnake Bay and Three Islands. The fish just hang there all the time, all year round. You can catch them there all year round. They're there. And I think this was a big factor in why it's changed in the bay in front of Green Island, and the fishing isn't what it used to be, is because of this erosion of this sandbar and the water just flowing into it from the intercoastal. That's not really nutrient rich. You know what I mean? So and that's why it's the clarity. Because if you look at it, the clarity, there's no clarity in the water in the intercoastal. Where the clarity becomes is when you get in the grass flats, and how the grass flats form is because they're protected. And then the grass grows, the sun shines through, and they filter the water, and that's why the water clears out along with the sand. The sand is a filter too, and in its own way also. But I think that's why the ecology's changed there. That's just my own personal opinion. I'm not no biologist, no marine biologist, no expert on this. It's just my take from fishing there for 40 years down there. That's why I don't have the success like I used to in front of Green Island that I did back in the day. But you can see it's clear right there in this satellite image that that big sandbar that used to run all in front of there is chopped up into 3 sections now, so water passes through. So it's slowly starting to change to what you have today in 2025. You know. But yeah, pretty interesting. So that's why I don't really spend a lot of time in the front of the island anymore. I mean, I'll probably shoot some more videos once I get back on the water and work that area again, and see. But, you know, north of the island, east of the island, south of the island, of course, is excellent redfish fishing. South of the island, you can catch trout back in there. I've never caught them north or east. It's always been reds. But on the south side there, I've caught a mixture. It's a mixed bag between trout and redfish in that area. For some reason, the trout like that zone between Green Island and Bird Island in that area. There's a nice little drop off right in that area. And for some reason, the trout like hanging there. And you usually do pretty good if you slow your drift down or make multiple drifts through there. You can catch plenty of trout on that. But it's pretty neat, huh, guys? Pretty interesting to show you that, so you can kind of see. Like I said, I tried my best here. It's not the greatest image. I wish I could have found more images that could display it and show it better. But like I said, these are just super old satellite photos. Google, I think they published them. They're public domain now, years ago, and I'm not sure which satellite took these. I think it's a Gemini satellite that took them, but maybe Google had a satellite back then. I don't know. But it really shows you how our Lower Laguna Madre has adapted over the years with change. And is it good or is it better? Well, this is the thing. That's another topic that we can discuss. So let's take a quick look at another one real quick. You know, as we're thinking about it, because look, fishing is good in some sense, but the limit size has changed. So is fishing better? I would say redfish fishing is better than trout fishing. We need to get the population up, so I'm all for them just limiting to 3 and certain sizes, and to keep feeding the bay with fingerlings. Because back in the day, you used to catch them all big. The trout were always all nice size. They weren't little, little bitty ones that you catch a bunch of and then catch an okay one here and there. And then once in a blue moon, you catch a real nice one. I mean, you're talking, man, they were 20, 24 inches all the time when you throw it out there. And like I say, a lot of change has to do with that. Fishing is one. Big factor is weather, freezes. We've had super hard freezes in 83, 89. Those are the hardest freezes that we've ever had down here, because that killed off the citrus industry. The citrus industry never recovered. The peach industry never recovered from those 2 big freezes in the 80s, back to back. The co-op in 1982 had 7,000 members. When 83 came around, it dropped to 2,000 members. And then when the freeze of 89 hit, it dropped to under 1,000, and it never recovered. Never did. Never has recovered. The valley is no longer a citrus. It used to be the citrus capital. Now it's Florida and California now. Florida leads everybody now. But that just goes to show you it's the same thing like with the fish. Weather has to do with it too, and a lot of them die off. So we had a freeze here a couple of years back, and we had a big kill off. That's why they adjusted it from 5 to 3, and then to I think 20 inches or whatever it is is the biggest you can keep. Anything over that's got to be thrown back, because we had a big mass killing of speckled trout in the lower Laguna Madre. So it's things that need to get addressed. But let's look at another one. Let's take a look at another one. All right, so let's look at 2014. Another 10 years from the last one we just looked at. Look at that. Look at Green Island, and then just directly across from Green Island, look how that sandbar is completely almost gone. So even 10 years from 2004 to 2014, it's even eroded even more. It's only got 2 sections now. That whole middle section is gone, and water just flows across that. And then look at Bird Island too. Bird Island's also getting smaller. So it's not as high in the water as it used to be. And it's a little shorter. And same thing with Green Island too. So you can see, so like I said, this is just my own personal opinion, is that I think that's the reason why the fishing's changed on the front side of the island there. That they no longer hang there. They may pass through there, but they no longer hang there like they used to, and congregate and stack up like they used to. Because there are times, I'm telling you, when I used to fish back in the 90s, that they were so stacked up there, they were tailing everywhere in the water. And they were just, I mean, just everywhere you looked, there were tails. And you would throw it, but they weren't feeding. So I've been out there in the middle of them in front of Green Island when I've seen it stacked up like that. And you just don't see it anymore. And I think the reason why, in my opinion, is that it's because of the sandbar not being there anymore like it used to be. But pretty neat, huh? So we're going to look at one more. It doesn't go all the way to 2024. Apparently they stopped taking images of this in 2022. So the next one's going to be a picture of it in 2022. And I guess the satellite's no longer operating. But it goes as far as 2022. So we'll take a look at the next one, and let's see, guys. Let's take a look. Okay, now look at this one. This is 2022. Look at Green Island, and then look directly to the left of Green Island. Look how that sandbar is completely gone. All that's left there is the little island piece that you see today out there in 2025 when you go out there. Completely gone, guys. So I think that has a big reason why the fishing's not the same in front of that island anymore. Because that protection that it gave that little bay back in there is no longer there to keep the nutrients in the bay, to keep the clarity in the bay like it used to. But yeah, as I say, change. Everything changes. Even on the lower Laguna Madre, it changes. And you're fishing it all the time. And sometimes you miss seeing, hey, this has changed. You know, you don't notice it until a few years after, and then you start thinking about it. Hey, wait a minute. I couldn't go here, now I can do this. Or I used to be able to do this, and I can't do that. So it's something that we always have to deal with. That's life, and everything changes. Just even also out there drift fishing on the lower Laguna Madre, it changes. So we're going to cut it off here. So Rusty and me, one of these days, we'll see you guys out drift fishing on the lower Laguna Madre. Y'all have a good day. Hmm? Let's go. Run. Come on. Let's go. You wanna run? Let's run. Or you just gonna sit there like a bump on the log? Come on. Let's go. Come on. Come on. There you go. Let's run. She's running. You're running, huh? Run. Let's go. That's nice and hard right there. Coming? What? Let's go. Come on, let's go all the way down. Try to stay in front of you. You just move so fast. Come on. Let's go. Almost at the bottom. You can do it. Come on, Papa. Come on. You got this. You got this, my friend. Almost down. Another 200 feet and we're down, buddy. What you got? Got something in your paw? Come here. Come on. Come on, Cassie. Let's go. Come on, Papa. There you go. Run. Cassie running. Come on. You can do this. Another 150 feet more. We'll be down on the creek bed. Tell you, Bubba, you need to start exercising more. Ain't no spring chickens anymore, my friend. It's all downhill from here, Bubba. Come on, this way. One more slope down and we're down. Go back to camp, cook some breakfast for you. Had some bacon. Yeah, see, Cassie likes that bacon. Oh yeah, look at that. Cassie loves bacon. Almost there. And then a long trail hike back to the camp. You're gonna sleep good tonight, aren't you, Bubby? Huh, buddy? He's gonna rack out. Yeah. Oh, we gotta go this way. We're going the wrong way. Come on, this way. You made it. You made it, buddy. Let's get that picture of the dunes in the back.